All right, Paul Bowman here with Barb Dowie. Did I say that right?
Correct.
All right. We're talking about hammer toes, and if you don't, most people know, but hammer toes is when your toes curl up and get stuck kind of like that. And then bunions on the big toe as well. So she's back in 2011, 2013, on both sides, she had surgery for the bunions as well as she had surgery for the hammer toes where they cut the ligaments and fused the toes. So I'm thinking this is a public service announcement for, now if you had it done, you had it done. Okay, let's look at it and say, okay, with what you had done, and that goes for anybody, like some people have had knee replacements and hip replacements and other surgeries and whatever. If you had that done, okay, that's who you are and what you are right now, and let's work with what we got. That said, if you haven't had those done and you have any kind of hammer toe and you have any kind of bunions, please see me or somebody like myself. Is one of the ways I put it is I would definitely assume, unless I know otherwise, that you and your doctor did what was best from what you knew at the time. Mm-hmm. But I would say, even going back more than a couple years ago, I wouldn't have had any better options. But knowing what I know now, I would say that those kind of procedures, I'm not exaggerating in my feeling on this anyway. I would say those are barbaric, knowing what I know now. And I would absolutely say, like, there's therapy. Like, do the rehab. Like, mm-hmm. Now that said, you don't know what you don't know, but when you do and you understand. So a couple of things that you said, and when I asked some questions, I said, if that was on both feet, you have more of a spine problem than a foot problem. Now, if it was on one foot, it's more of an entrapped nerve somewhere from your spine down to your toes. Mm-hmm. And we've done a little bit of stuff on both of those in class, but we'll go into more specifics with you. But does that make sense more, like when you realize, like, okay, if that's affecting both of my feet, that's almost guaranteed that it's actually a spine thing. Mm-hmm. Now, some people are like, even if you may not have any difficulties that you're aware of your spine, but it's still, a lot of times that would come with, okay, there's tightness and pain and discomfort and stuff like that, but that doesn't have to be the case. You could have something going on in your spine without even having the pain or the tension that you're even aware of. So, and we'll go into both. But again, if it's something evenly on both legs or both knees or both feet, it's probably your spine, and you really should take a good look at that with somebody that knows what they're talking about for rehab. And if it's one side, it's probably a nerve getting entrapped somewhere from your low back, at your hip, at your thigh, in your calf, or down to the foot. And again, there's good rehab for that. And in the bigger picture, rehab would be a much better way to go with that. All right, actually, I'd love to hear it in your words first. So, kind of going off what we said earlier, what I thought was probably the issues, we did find some stuff that backed it up. And if we didn't, I would go elsewhere and look. Mm. But what did we find so far?
Well, in the evaluation process, assuming the pose of going down to touch my toes, you discovered that my back, rather than going into a positive curve, remained pretty neutral rather than going into what you expected it to do. So I have some lack of mobility in the middle spine. Even
though your hands are down on the floor in a toe touch, your low back is still in extension. Mm-hmm. So we have yet to see your back actually flex at all. And it has good tone and it has a good curve when you're standing, but anybody should also be able to move that from flexion to extension, and right now you are stuck in extension.
Never thought about it before.
Yeah. So we can work on that. And then what did we discover? We've only really tested vibration as a sense, but we're definitely going to test hot and cold and carefully sharp and carefully dull and stuff like that. But we'll test all the senses, especially seeing what we found. But what we found was good. Actually, what did we find about vibration?
As I went into a toe touching, my hands on the ground position, the sensation of the vibration that you would put on the foot, I felt much less stimulation from that than when I was standing up. So there was obviously some pinched nerve or some lack of nerve.
Yeah, and going off of what kind of connected us to pieces, what I said earlier was, okay, it's in both her feet, so I really would assume it'd be a safe assumption to start looking. It's a back issue. So anytime we move and a toe touches a move, the nerves coming out of our back and down our legs should move freely and allow for good function and a good sensation. But obviously some of those nerves, or at least one of those nerves, is getting stuck and getting pulled on when she does her toe touch, which is giving her, she's losing sensation in that movement. Yeah, so that is something towards that too. A lot of people are like, well, it's always, if they realize that sensation lacking, they're like, oh, I had an injury, or it's been that way a long time, or I had surgery, and they just assume that it is what it is, and that's a mistake, and for many reasons, because if you don't take care of that, it's going to affect all sorts of other stuff, and generally become a downward spiral over time. But you don't let that happen. You're proactive. And so to say, like, hey, recognize those things, and you can improve them, and you should improve them. So we're going to definitely go over some sensory rehab for your
Okay,
feet.
well, let's go.
All right.